Hello, and another day of talking about apologetics, and I'm continuing my study on miracles. There's this book called Miracles, and I've got some of the information from there. And from a historical perspective, they reckon that there is a really good evidence that Jesus was a healer and an exorcist. And people think that there weren't many individuals in the ancient literature who perform miracles. Therefore, they think that it's probably not likely that Jesus would have been considered a miracle worker if it had not been true, or if it didn't have any foundation in reality. Even non Christian sources were talking about him, even Jewish sources, but they were really antagonistic towards him. And I always find it interesting. I read it somewhere that according to, and I think it was a lawyer who said, in a modern, if there's a lawsuit going on, or there's a trial, a legal trial, and if the opposition presents an evidence that confirms whatever you're saying, whatever you're suggesting, or confirms your points of view or what you're arguing, they are accepting it without even thinking about it. They're accepting without question. So it's interesting that although the Jews were antagonistic towards Jesus, they're still confirming in one sense the Christian claim, according to which Jesus was a miracle worker, although they don't necessarily accept it that it was from God, as we studied it in the Gospel of John. Many people think that the stories about the miracles of Jesus were running parallel to other stories about him. So it wasn't like as they were writing down the stories about Jesus, his sayings, the things he did, then they decided to develop a miracle element to give weight to their contention, to try to make Jesus more godlike. But they think that the miracle stories and the stories about Jesus, they were existing concurrently at the same time. It's interesting that there were other miracle stories outside of Christianity, but most of them weren't really tied to a person. They were more like healing places, like the well of Bethesda from the Gospel of John, places like that, or healing God or a healing divine person, but not really people walking about. And even when there were, I remember watching this study, somebody did a study on these, there were these supposedly miracle workers, but when they examined it closely, many of the things they were doing were fabrications, it turned out. And as I was reading this book, I came across a couple of miracles in Africa, and I wrote down two. So one, there was a urologist, a Ghanaian urologist from Ghana, and in many occasions he experienced that people were brought or prayed back from the edge of death. It seemed that nothing would help them. It seemed that they were going to die, and they were prayed for and they got better. And there was a pediatrician who studied in Scotland, and for years this person was the Pediatrician Society's president, and he had a 4-year-old son or daughter. He had a 4-year-old child who was having a fever for 15 days. During these 15 days, the lower body got paralyzed. They did an x-ray. Turned out that it was showing some deformities in the lower extremities. For 5 months, the kid didn't get better, and suddenly, in one day, everything just disappeared. And this pediatrician said that it was an answer to prayer from God. And I read it in the book that it was really interesting that people from Africa, even if they studied in the West. We have loads of people studying from Africa in Hungary. We have a famous medical university, or England, the States, Canada. But even though they study here, they do not reject supernatural things. And I have many brothers from Africa, Christian brothers, and I have friends from other places, at work, and I ask people about the supernatural things because I find it fascinating, even demonic stuff. Some of the stories they're telling me, it's crazy. It's almost like supernatural seems to be a normal thing in Africa. Curses, killing people, black magic, and the like. Obviously, some people think it's demonic. That's why it's really hard to evangelize in places like that. And I remember reading somewhere that when people are trying to build churches in places like that, it's really difficult to train pastors because they have their old ways of having these demonic events and demonic people having demonic powers, but at the same time you're trying to teach them the gospel and the miracles of Jesus, and it's really hard to let them to forget the old way and ascribe to them like these scary names, like, I don't know, Magic Mike or something. But I remember reading a book on demons, demonic stuff, and even on the West there are cases that were written down by non-believers, so it wasn't like they had a religious bias saying that they came across demonic activities. There was a kid in a hospital who supposedly was possessed by a demon, and he had supernatural strength, and it was written down by hospital staff or policemen who didn't believe in the supernatural, witnessed supernatural things, and they wrote them down. So I think this is a fascinating subject. See you later.